Okay everybody, today we're tying a Gunslinger. It's a pattern that I've been fishing for the last decade or so. It's just a kind of a mashup of a hare's ear or a pheasant tail nymph, but it's been a good producer for me, and they're pretty fun to tie. So all I have here is a Daiichi scud hook with a brass bead, black, 2.4 millimeter. This is a size 16 hook. You could use tungsten bead as well, and I'm just using some UTC 70 thread. So let's take our thread back a little ways and just kind of dress the hook there. First thing I'm going to do is tie in a rib, so I'm just using small copper wire here. So we'll just take the wire and just lay it along the side of the hook shank there and secure that in. We'll tie that back around the bend of the hook towards our tie-in point, directly above the barb of the hook, about right there. And then we're going to take some strands of pheasant tail. So I've clipped this off from the tail there, and I've tried to clip the whole length of the feather there, so I have a nice long piece. And we want the tail to be half the length of the hook shank. So once I have that measurement, I can come in there and tie that down. So I like to just hold it on an angle and then just carefully just roll that feather up onto the hook there so it lays on top. Okay, now we can advance our thread just past halfway. Alright, now we'll just take this the butt ends of this pheasant tail here. We're going to wrap this over the top away from us and just build the abdomen of this fly. Just working our way, just trying to make nice even wraps. Same way we would tie like a pheasant tail or something like that. Okay, so we'll just tie that off, hold it with our right hand, drop our thread over about 3 times, and now we can clip off this excess there. Okay, now we can rib the fly there, so we'll take this copper wire and carefully run that over the top there and just space it out nice and neat through that peacock. Make a couple turns up here around the thorax, and then we can tie that off. Okay, now we're ready to begin working on the thorax there. So I want to find the halfway point there. So let's just make a few turns and come right back to about halfway right there. Alright, so now this is kind of a spot that I like to just put a little drop of super glue. So we've got some just Zap-A-Gap here just to get a little bit going on the underbody there as we glue in all this stuff. For the wing case, I'm using just some mottled colored thin skin, and I'm going to cut myself a strip that is about the width of the bead. That's critical. You don't want to get a strip that's too thick. It's very difficult to work with. Remove that paper backing there, and then it kind of curls in one direction. We want to tie it down so it's curled up there. So with my thumbnail, I'll try to just carefully hold it there at that halfway point, come around, and we'll secure that in so it's sticking up right there at the halfway point. Okay, now we're just going to dub the body, the thorax going forward. So I'm going to do one little section of just regular old hare's ear dubbing. So we'll just start it here. I'm going to do about 3 sections of dubbing. So let's start here and just basically making my first little ball there. Okay, and then we're going to put some legs on this fly, and I think this is what kind of sets this fly apart from, say, just traditional pheasant tails or hare's ears. This is black crystal flash here. So I'm just going to take one strand and just kind of hold it in place, tie it on one side of the hook there, and then let's repeat that step on the opposite side there. Hold it in place with my forefinger and secure that in there with a couple of good turns. Now we can continue dubbing the fly with our hare's ear dubbing here. And now I should be able to Make a few turns right in the middle there, between those legs. And now we're just kind of working around the legs. Let's pull the front legs back. Let's pull those back out of the way and come up around in front, like so. Now if they're going a lot of different directions right now, I'm not too worried about that. We're going to pull over this thorax. You can just slightly stretch it if you need to, just very slightly. Come around and drop our thread over right behind the bead with a couple of just add a little tension right there, and then we can hold this straight up and snip this off. I like to just come straight across right there. You might have a little bit of that sticking out over the front. I'm not too worried about that. Let's just put a neat little collar right there where we can whip finish. Okay. Now we can kind of pull those legs back into place a little bit, how we like them. And let's trim those down to size. And then you might have a few stray hairs from that hairs you're dubbing. I like the bugginess. Just don't clip your legs there, but we can give it a little bit of a haircut, just kind of clean up some of those strays a little bit if we need to. There's a long one. Okay, now it's a good spot to you can use UV glue if you'd like on the thorax. You know, I'm just going to take another little drop of Zap-A-Gap and just let that run right along the top there, that thread, and kind of bite down into that thread right there. And that's good enough. That's a Gunslinger.